Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 5 People on the Go, the show that's all about tools and approaches for success from the most brilliant people. My name is Meitar Zehavi, I'm your host, and today we have David Gan, the founder of OP Crypto, a VC company that invests in the most inspiring entrepreneurs in crypto. So, hi, David, how are you?
I'm doing well. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for being here. Now, I want to start from the most basic question. Why crypto?
It's a good question. Definitely crypto is not my first choice. So coming into this, I was a prior investment banker. I started and sold my own Web2 startup, went into traditional venture capital in the Web2 space before coming into crypto full time. I think a lot of this has ties to what crypto is all about, right? Being able to have open finance for everyone, being able to have a very decentralized economy. I think one of the things that really struck to me was how easily you're able to move monetary value from point A to point B. I think that was a particularly tough experience growing up as an immigrant coming to the U.S., where none of my parents were banked. We had family in China that wanted to send us money to the U.S., where my mom was pursuing her PhD and I was just attending elementary school. So a lot of that process was extremely excruciating, and they were just mailing literally cash from the envelope from China to here. And I thought as a kid, like, how could this possibly be? And then when first crypto came around in the early 2010, 2012, I sort of experimented a little bit on my own, but really didn't get really serious into it until 2017, where I became more of an institutional investor looking to invest in some of the core technologies underlying crypto.
So for you, it was like a real ideological thing?
I think it's very, I wouldn't say if it's ideology, but I think it's something that really resonated with me as solving a problem that wasn't able to be solved in the traditional finance space. So I think as people now are doing business more in an international format, I think ultimately crypto as a means of settlement is much faster, much more efficient. As you can see, when there was a war with Ukraine, right, when they asked for donations, in a very, very speedy manner, people from all over the world donated over $10 million to the Ukrainian government in less than 24 hours, right? In sort of the traditional side of things, that wouldn't have made possible. So I think a lot of what crypto inspires today is really being able to have this open finance type of structure and be able to really facilitate a lot of sort of businesses across the world without having to really rely on the traditional banks.
Interesting. I see what you're saying, but on the other hand, I think about the fact that crypto is so moving around a lot. When I invested in Ethereum, I think it was like $4,000.
Sure.
Now it's half, less than that.
Definitely.
So how can you actually treat it as money?
Sure.
If you're investing in companies and you're expecting for some sort of return.
Yeah. So I think as you think about Bitcoin, Ethereum, a lot of sort of the assets in crypto today, you can very similarly compare them to equities in the stock market, right? So all of these, with the exception of Bitcoin, which is more known as digital gold or programmable money, a lot of these other tokens that you can buy on the secondary market are very much representative of new protocols, or what we call as companies today in the equities market, right? Mm-hmm. So they have obviously a market cap, they have transaction volumes, they have different business lines that accrue to their value as they are in the secondary market today. But I was referring to as a facilitator of monetary transfer is actually the stable coins that we use today, right? They don't fluctuate in value at all. They're backed by the dollar. It's 1-to-1 to the dollar. So anytime when you're transacting with a counterparty, it can very easily facilitate the transfer of stable coins, which, for every $1 that you want to transfer, you have one stable coin, and there's no volatility in price. So you know exactly what the counterparty is getting, and you know how much you're spending on any particular thing. Everything else in crypto other than stablecoin is very much a representation of the company itself. So that in its fact, like should fluctuate in value as the company grows or depreciates over time, right?
I see. So when you invest in something, you take into consideration like the company, basically,
Sure.
like you're investing in any other startup.
Yeah. So it's the same thing as a startup, but it's like the tokens themselves represent ownership of that particular company, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's only X amount of tokens being minted. You have a percentage of that token base, and that's your percent ownership of tokens. Same in the equities market, right? If you buy, stocks of Tesla, right, you have a percentage ownership of Tesla, the company, and whatever sort of the number of stocks that you have, it represents, your exact ownership in that particular company.
Well, right. But with stocks, everything is regulated.
Sure.
Like you actually know what you're getting. Everything is very transparent. In crypto, people can say, okay, I am now minting a new coin. Come and invest.
Sure.
So I think how can you compare?
I think it's regulated for good reason and also not necessarily for the best reasons as well, right? I think ultimately the U.S. government is looking to protect its relatively less sophisticated retail investors, right? In crypto, I think it's an open playing field, right? Anyone can invest in anything, and like anyone can sort of participate in any particular project they want to. But I don't think anyone is like forcing you to buy any tokens, right, out of your own will. So I think ultimately you have the optionality to buy something, but if you ultimately buy something without doing your own research, that's your own fault, right? That's not really. You shouldn't have like the government hand-holding you in each step of the process, right? I think ultimately it's like whenever you buy or purchase something, it's out of your own decision, right? Sure, like it might be a scam or it might be something that is inappropriate, but I think it's up to you to really, do your research and really, talk to and look at the code. A lot of sort of what every project has is it's a very open source type of code base, and you're very much easily can go in there and see what's happening for yourself. So I think a lot of this is like, you should never invest in something that you properly don't understand or don't know much about. And that's the fallacy about crypto. It's like too many people FOMO into something without really doing their own research or really understanding the space in actuality, and they just, pour money in. I don't think that's anyone's fault but your own, right? If that happens.
Well, I guess, but on the other hand, I think about, scenarios like just happened with FTX that people, like, no one could have known in a way. Like, everything was very transparent, and yet it happened.
I think that's where people are misunderstanding the situation, right? I think for the FTX situation or a lot of these other sort of bigger organizations that blew up, nothing was transparent. You couldn't see anything into the books of FTX. You don't know exactly what their revenues are. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. What I'm referring to is like when you invest in, on-chain protocols where all the transactions are done on-chain, you can very much just go see on Etherscan what are some of the things that's transacting in the background. What is sort of the code base there, right? Like for FTX, it's just like if you want to give your own tokens in custody of someone else that didn't give you the most appropriate or the most transparent information, that's your own fault, right? You can very easily create your own wallet, you hold your own assets, right? Do it yourself, right? I think that's also something that like if you're going to be lazy about it and just give your keys to someone else, that's not your assets anymore. That's in custody of someone else, right? It's just like, do you want to give all your cash to me to manage, right? Mm-hmm. And if you say yes, then, sort of you've given up your will over what the assets you own, right? In crypto, that's the special thing about crypto. It's like you very much can be your own bank, right? Like you don't need anyone else to hold your coins for you, right? It's not like I think I like to use this example. As a kid, like our parents will give us a piggy bank, and like sooner or later that piggy bank will become full, and like you don't have another facilitatory way to really hold your assets, and then you ultimately go to a bank which can hold as much quantifiable assets as possible. Whereas now, like everything is very digital native. Like you can hold $1, you can hold $1 billion. It's the same effect, right? So there's no reason why you can't hold your keys yourself, right? And like I think that just takes a bit of learning, sure, but I think that's not something that is too difficult if you do your own research and do your homework, right?
Okay, so let's talk about that because I do like my show to be very practical.
Sure.
So how do you do your homework?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this is like everything you can find on the internet, right? So at the end of the day, whether it's looking at a new token project or whether it's looking for tutorials on how to set up a MetaMask wallet, right? I mean, all the information is online. Everything's open source. So there's plenty of information that you can even just find on Twitter, right? So a lot of it is just simply Google it, right? Like a lot of the things you'll be surprised like how much information that you're able to just find by clicking a couple of buttons. But at the same time, not everything you see online you can believe, right? So definitely look at multiple channels of reference. Talk to industry leaders, experts in the space. I think like interviews like this is great, where it's like, I'm able to share my insights. I'm sure other people are able to share their insights as well and other aspects about the space. So I think really listening to some of the experts and seeing what they have to say, and then you really taking what they've said and really analyzing it in your own perspective and see if that resonates or makes sense to you, right?
Okay, so what are the questions that you're asking when you're approaching a project?
Well, I think as an investor, right, you always have to be cautious on, what is sort of the protocol or the product he's trying to accomplish, right?
Okay.
So I think it's very similar to just traditional investing as well, right? Where you look at the pedigree of the team, right? Like what have they done before that allows them to do something innovative and novel today, right? Like what are some of their transferable skill sets that can ultimately be able to accomplish what they're looking to build, right? I think that's first and foremost, really the background of the team and how relevant their prior experiences is to their new project. And a lot of times it's like people come up with these crazy ideas or like these very, very sort of contrarian ideas where like you as an investor from all the experience that you have to see if like this is something that people actually want down the road or like if this is even accomplishable by the current standard of technology, right? So I think it's also understanding if what they're ultimately looking to build is feasible and actually has demand long term. And that's where you see like market sizing, you see demand, right? You see all of these things that that you try to envision the future of the company, right? And to see like what the price is charging for it, right? And if it makes sense for the current market state or like your future upside.
Can you give an example of an investment you did where you asked all those questions and like what were the answers you found? Just so people have an actual image in their head how it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of like projects all over the world, right? Where it's like
just one
they're pitching different concepts on like what they want to do, what they want to accomplish. One of our portfolio companies called Merit Circle, right? They're essentially building out in-house gaming guild for the world, right? So ultimately, when you think about all the people that are scholars looking for the play to earn model, like you need someone to ultimately go and manage these scholars, right? Like this is a feasible need where it's like as an incoming gamer into a play to earn project, you don't really know like how you're able to really go into the game and really attain the best results. You have to have someone give you certain NFTs to be able to actually play those games, right? And you need to address multiple markets other than sort of Southeast Asia, where that's been the predominant addressable market for them. But I think overall, and at a global scale, right, they're able to really tap into a lot of these emerging markets and really ramp the market from there.
Interesting. That's a good example. Well, I'm curious, where do you see this field heading? Because people keep saying that crypto's dead, there's like no way it will recover. And it seems like, well, the coins may be going down, but still there's a lot of business around it. So I want to hear from someone that's like really in the inside. What's your opinion about it?
Well, I mean, I think it's always an ever-growing industry, right? So at the end of the day, right, I think there were parts of 2018-19 where we really thought like crypto might be dead as an industry, right? But I think going as far as we have today, I think all the biggest institutions have some skin in the game now that it's very hard for crypto just go to a flat line zero, right? Too many people, too much talent have already come into the space that, they're all pushing the space forward. And there's tremendous amount of progress that has been built over the past 10 years, specifically in the past 2 or 3 years when a lot of the big institutions above some of the biggest technical talent and some of the biggest protocols have been built in place, right? So obviously, it's sort of on the downhill trend right now in terms of price volatility. But that's also good for the industry where it like washes out some of the scammers, it washes out some of the people that are not serious about the space, and ultimately makes room for new incumbents to come in and build something that will effectively change the future of the world in the crypto blockchain space.
Interesting. So where do you see this heading? Because, well, let's go specific. Because you talked about gaming, which a lot of people say it's probably where it's going to be most exciting and has the most use for it.
Right.
But what else?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you think about all like future application layer products, right, gaming being one of the things that really can draw, quick attention spans right away. But when we look at all the different application layer products that we use today, like social media, where it's very centralized, all the data is consolidated by one central entity. The content creators, influencers, some are not being compensated fairly for the work and the revenue that we're provided, right? A lot of this has to change as sort of, the centralized party being the intermediary versus like, you being able to go direct to consumers and being able to capture your own audience in a very decentralized format. So a lot of the social media content and sort of in the entertainment space, a lot of that will be revolutionized via crypto to reach a larger audience, to reach a more fair on-chain way of connecting with your customers and settlement at a global scale. But also like any sorts of like NFTs or digital collectibles, all of this like will have a different immersive experience as well, right? I think at the end of the day, right, the clothing that we're wearing today like will mean less and less significant as we're going out less and less in the physical world, but spending more time in the online world. So like any sort of avatars that we have or any sort of custom brands or like apparel that we have in a virtual world where we'll be spending more time, it will be more important to showcase or more meaningful or valuable in that sense, because that's where you are able to reach a global audience. Whereas today, like we can only sit here, one-to-one, right? How many times are we going to be able to do this down the road, right? Whereas like if you put yourself in an online setting, then, you can be as visible to as many people as there are in the world. There's no constraints, right? Whereas physical, there's a lot of like, physical sort of constraints where about meeting times, meeting locations, and cross-border, flights and visas. There's even certain places around the world where we physically cannot be there, right? Whereas in the metaverse or in the virtual world, right, we're able to have a much bigger vision, have a much bigger audience at the same time. Anything that we do on chain will become much more valuable as well.
Interesting. So you see the world going towards the metaverse.
Well, I think metaverse is only our creation of what the future outlook of the world looks like. But I think it will be a very much more digital native and more of an online presence than ever before. As much as, even now we're moving towards that as well, right? Obviously, people are now spending way more time on the apps than they are, physically, doing like
interacting.
Interacting. Yeah, exactly.
What's your opinion about trading? Like NFT trading, crypto trading, all of this where people are expecting to earn so much money from basically nothing usually.
Well, I mean, I think there's not from nothing, right? I think every time you trade, I mean, you're getting in and out of investments very quickly, right? So I think, for us, we're a relatively longer term investor as VCs. We invest in something, we, pour a lot of our, skill sets and know-how and connections into it so that we help it grow over time. I think a lot of what trading is very much speculating, right? So I think, not necessarily too accretive in terms of value to the market, but I think it's more so like you can do something that you recognize there's an information arbitrage that you're able to take advantage of, that you may be able to, make money or have sort of some of these indifferences in place that you're able to gain some positional advantage in, right? But I ultimately think it's just like it's very, very hard to win in the end as a trader because I think that's what makes crypto a very fair and transparent world where like I think now obviously there's still things to be worked on, but in 5-10 years, right, a lot of the information will be perfectly transparent and like unless you're doing insider trading, right, which obviously it's restricted by current SEC laws, right? In crypto, like eventually everything will be on chain, everything will be transparent, and like all the information is perfect across everyone, and it's just very hard to gain an edge when in that sort of perfect world scenario, right?
Interesting. A question just came into my mind. How do you usually find opportunities, like investment opportunities?
Well, I think it's just being in the space for a very long time, right? And
so it's mostly just hearing from other people.
Well, also it's like referrals from the people I've already invested in, right? Referrals from people that have invested in me, right? Referrals from people that we generally meet in our network, right? We'll host events, we'll host demo days, we'll host hackathons, right here in this house. So like a lot of different things that we really make our name in the market, and people know our value add as helping them tap into the Asia market, helping them with exchange listings, helping them with a lot of these different things that help the projects grow, right?
Interesting. Well, we need to finish soon, but before we do, I would love to hear from you. What is your advice for someone who is interested in getting into the space, even if it's in the investment side or as an entrepreneur side? What will be your advice for him?
Yeah, I think just I think going to all the different channels to really on-ramp your knowledge about the space, right? Twitter, obviously we have our own Twitter. I have my own Twitter, at David Gan 1818. So, follow me and people like myself that, we share our thoughts on the space regularly. And also just attending particularly good like workshops or like meetups in your local areas, wherever it may be. I think crypto is such a global phenomenon that it's not hard to find a local meetup wherever you are in the world, right? To be able to connect and meet with some of the local entrepreneurs and thought leaders in the space. And lastly, just really just try and use the things that you're investing in or you're looking to invest in. Even before you invest, you should use the protocols themselves. A lot of it is you can very much free to anyone to just play around with. So whether you're a developer, you can build some code or build some products on there, or if you're just an enthusiast, go into their community, see what they're talking about, and see if any of sort of what they're building upcoming resonates with you. Right?
Interesting. And well, just to finish, are you optimistic?
I'm always optimistic, right? I think every sort of point in whether it's a bull market or bear market has so much to do, right? I think in a bear market is where we really go down, heads down building. And the bull market is really we go out and get adoption, right? So I think there's different roles at play in each part of the cycle. And I mean, as investors, we're pretty agnostic with regards to where we are in the cycle. We invest across, throughout. And I think ultimately it's really about, trying and finding the best entrepreneurs that we can put our backing towards, that we can, together work together to fund a greater and brighter future.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was great.
All right.
And thank you guys for listening or watching this episode. And see you guys in the next episode.
Okay.
Bye.
Ciao.